We'll be starting with existentialism. It emphasizes on the importance of man as an individual and his freedom and responsibility. Hence, it revolts against all ideologies, philosophical themes, and social systems which tend to undermine human freedom, willing, emotions, and intuitions. It firmly upholds the reality of empirical world. Philosophy must focus on individuals' confrontations with the world. The central question is how an individual can find authentic existence in this absurd world. It emphasizes on distinctive qualities of all human beings rather than treating man as an abstract entity. Existentialism has similarities with German Romanticism, which is emotional, intuitive, and subjective rather than logical, intellectual, and subjective. Kierkegaard and Jasper are theistic existentialists, while Sartre, Heidegger, and Nietzsche upholds atheistic existentialism. Now, authenticity and inauthenticity. Authenticity is subjective condition of an individual living honestly and courageously in the moment, without refuge in excuse and without reliance on group or institutions for meaning and purpose. Inauthenticity is a condition that results when the nature and need of an individual are ignored, denied, and obscured or sacrificed for institutions, abstractions, or groups. Now, naturalism, material phenomena are governed by mechanical law. Life, mind, thoughts, and actions are functional functions of material phenomena. Hence, the free will, which we seemingly possess, is illusionary. According to idealism, absolute idea is the substratum of human mind, consciousness, or spirit. Human freedom turns illusionary as the divine will swallow the individual will. Industrial society, according to which it subordinates the individual to the level of machines which have inauthentic existence. According to totalitarianism, whether it is communism or fascism, it submerges individual freedom in the name of collectivism. Now we'll be starting Soren Kierkegaard. Kierkegaard advocates theistic existentialism. It is the concrete, living individual who is the foundation of his philosophy and forms the perspective of individual knowledge always remain incomplete. Soren Kierkegaard claimed that truth is subjective and the crowd is untruth. Kierkegaard's three stages of life: aesthetic, moral, and religious. Rather than extending proofs for his view, Kierkegaard presents a series of edifying sketches and discourses describing three stages of life's way. There is no chronology among them and can take place simultaneously also. The aesthetic stage, that is the stage of lone individual, it is characterized by an attitude in which one has no continuity or commitment in one's life. The aesthetic stage is a futile flight against boredom, characterized by pursuit of pleasure, especially sensuous pleasure. It is the most common stage. When we sunk far into crowd, absorbed by it, we are too unaware of ourselves as selves to exist. We are too unreflective to be an individual person in any meaningful sense at all. The aesthetic stage is characterized by pursuit of sensuous pleasures. The aesthetic way of living is ironically boring and worse. Every aesthetic life view is despair. It has about it a fundamental sameness and sadness. It is governed by emotions and sensual pleasure. In this stage, human beings treat other individuals also as objects of pleasure. One day, an individual in the aesthetic stage becomes a victim of boredom and skepticism. Finally, a total despair takes into life. Now, despair, it is the loss of hope in reaction to a breakdown in one or more of defining qualities of oneself or identity. Example: a singer associating his identity with singing ability falls in despair when he loses it. The human condition is one of despair, and as long as we live, we must remain in this state. Despair, that is sickness unto death, does not refer to psychological state of mind but to an ontological state of being. Now, the moral stage, which is the second stage, the stage of individual and the society. It is when individual starts taking interest in social life guided by morality. It is a way of life that involves making commitments to norms of society characterized by certain level of continuity. It is devoted to general universal principles that are continually revised according to changing humanistic values. One moves upward to the level of universalized ethical behavior that, ironically, but it serves the finite aesthetic nature better than the uncommitted aesthetic life does. In doing so, the ethical person achieves a degree of unity that the aesthetic stage does not. Ultimately, nothing can be resolved on ethical level. Realization that abstract moral rules cannot give objective results in despair. To get beyond it, to get somewhere, we must take a leap of faith. Now, the third stage, which is the religious stage, the stage of individual before God. Now, for Kierkegaard, the religious stage of life is the highest. It is the only authentic way of living. Enlightenment notions of human autonomy result in despair because everything hinges on our human judgment, which is always subject to doubt. No matter how careful we think, how carefully we analyze, we can never be sure that we are right. Our ethics is constantly being challenged and revised by us. Consequently, we live without authenticity, security, and stability. It is necessary to leap towards the religious, especially towards God, if one is to ever escape the despair, the crowd life, the aesthetic life, and the ethical life. Only the religious life acknowledges our dual nature, that is finite and infinite, and provides a way for the individual to transform the particular into universal. This is accomplished by taking a leap of faith. Example: Abraham, by choosing to sacrifice his son, became a knight of faith by transcending the general ethical law. It occurs after total disillusionment. On the basis of faith, he believes in God, which is not an objective reality. This is the stage of fulfillment. Now, God relation. For Kierkegaard, the most important issue facing any individual is how to relate to the God. We exist only when we appropriate our beliefs by taking them up subjectively and passionately by becoming a subject. Existing, that is, becoming a subject, is possible only when we have God relation and nothing else suffices. Kierkegaard insists that anyone who truly knows himself thereby knows the need for God is real. By moving towards God, we strive to mend the rift between our own souls and the infinite Creator who grounds and sustains us. By being fully conscious of this, we experience the fact that our actions and choices create our individual destiny. We What I really lack is to be clear in my mind about what I am to do, not what I am to know, except in so far as a certain understanding must precede every action. Truth is subjectivity and the crowd is untruth. Kierkegaard characterized the period he lived in as one of that emphasized the crowd over individual. This approach diminished the existential reflection that yielded personal responsibility for beliefs and choices. Kierkegaard saw himself as a corrective force in society where people blindly found truth in crowd and their institutions. Kierkegaard argued that Hegelianism provided the philosophical foundation for these institutions. Thus, he directs most of his fervent philosophical critique against this view and its implication. Truth is subjectivity. All those truths which constitute the foundation of man's life are subjective truths. In science and mathematics, we have objective truths which can be proved and taught. They are not the basic tenets of our life. While objective facts are important, there is a second and more crucial element to truth, which involves how one relates oneself to matters of fact. Subjective fact truth doesn't require any proof. God is a subjective truth. Treating subjective truths as objective truth results in paradox. Subjective truth is related to faith and not reason. Objective truth never focuses on human being as an individual. Nothing is true in me unless it becomes alive in me. This is the statement. Now, objectivity as untruth. Kierkegaard rejected the view that science and objective truths, as in mathematics, could provide meaning for an individual. He considered objectivity, impersonality, and impartiality as dangerous, insulting, and ugly delusions. Kierkegaard criticized science and the massing of society, which he thought will alienate individuals from themselves by leveling everyone towards a mathematical equality. People are pressurized to conform to types, becoming abstractions rather than authentic individuals. Both mass movements and objective knowledge fail to address the individual. Rationality and objectivity are hindrance to authenticity because they distance us from our existential predicaments. He laments the massing of society, the reduction of individuals' role in the face of mass production, mass media, theories of objectivity and abstraction, etc. Kierkegaard insists that a collective identity is always somehow false. In order to belong, to fit in, we must betray some part of ourselves and must cease living our own lives. Thus begins a life living of a different kind of life. Objective approach Objective approaches to philosophy fails us when it comes to learning how to exist. This is because they try to instruct us, to inform us. I am to exist, my life must be a different kind of life than it would have been if I believe otherwise. Kierkegaard refers to our present state of existence as a state in which we find ourselves hopelessly separated from and yet also hopelessly longing for the infinite. We are in despair, whether we know it or not, because we have a double nature, composed of the infinite and the finite, the temporal and the eternal. We human beings must always be separated from the eternal by restrictions imposed upon us by being in the physical world. Our dual nature does not consist of two substances, but of one self struggling to exist between the pull of the world and eternity. It is not some sort of Cartesian dualism. All humans are bodily creatures who also possess souls. Bodily creatures. All humans are bodily creatures who also possess souls. The body is finite, the soul is infinite. This mixture of finite body and infinite soul is an uneasy one. However, this psychological anxiousness is merely a superficial symptom of our deeper spiritual separation from the true identity of God, which is infinity of God. Separation from God is sin, and so despair is also sin. We, if we were never in despair, we would never become aware of our own finitude, and thus we would never become aware of our own dependence upon God. Criticisms. Kierkegaard's philosophy inclines too much towards subjectivity and individuality. Many existentialists like Sartre are of the view that existentialism is not compatible with theism. The notion of leap of faith can't be justified rationally and can result in fanaticism. Also, objective truths in science and universal laws of ethics can in no way be relegated to faith. Moreover, the division of life into three stages is arbitrary, lacking proper justification. In now importance, Kierkegaard's philosophy helps in reclamation of existing individual from philosophical, theological, political, and scientific abstraction. Now we'll be moving on to John Paul Sartre. John Paul Sartre, a heavy emphasis on the importance of personal responsibility and freedom in human life. His philosophy places an equal amount of emphasis on the unending struggle and difficulty involved in quest to avoid falling into bad faith. He used them to show that reality is inherently absurd. Existence precedes essence. According to major religions, God is the creator of humans and the world. For instance, as per Bible, the God created man from his own image. Thus, essence of man was in God's mind, or essence precedes existence. Sartre argues that if this is the case, then man cannot be free. It is against the tenets of existentialism. Sartre says that man creates his own essence, or existence precedes essence. Human nature is the product of existence. Existence means that emerging out of or standing out or growing with the feeling of existence. From the moment he realizes his existence, man exists. For mere mortals, existence is empty. It can be filled by essence for authentic existence. Paradoxically, Sartre says that man is not what he is what he is not. Present is not his real nature. He is his future possibility which he has not actualized yet. I am not who I was. The person I will be is not who I am. Now, freedom and responsibility. Man is freedom. Freedom and existence are two sides of the same coin. To be is identical with to be free. Man always finds himself in different situations, and in every situation, he is free to choose from among the various possibilities. Choosing to be guided by others is also a free act. Limitations of freedom. One cannot choose his or her parents, family, socio-political conditions, death, etc. They are factual conditions or facticity, that is thrownness. Facticity can't be changed, thus acts as a limitation on freedom. A limitation turns into a hurdle when one decides to choose. For example, a locked room is a limitation when one wants to get out. Even in limited conditions, man has many possibilities to choose. Freedom doesn't mean successful action. Freedom is not destroyed by failure. Man is free and is responsible for choices and action. Man is condemned to be free. There is no escape from freedom. More freedom means more responsibility. Responsibility creates more anguish. When a man chooses something, if it is of value, then it should be for others also. By particular choice, I am not only responsible for myself but also for others. This realization increases anguish and it becomes unbearable. So people avoid responsibility and become inauthentic being. Any attempt to skim responsibility is bad faith. People try to make God, circumstance, fate, etc. responsible for their own acts. Procrastination is a type of bad faith. Now, bad faith. To be in bad faith is to escape from one's responsibility as a free creature and attempt to become like those beings in the world that are in themselves. Thinking of oneself as being in itself is a great comfort to many people because it entails never having to take responsibility for your own action in the world. People prefer to see themselves as victims of circumstances rather than individuals who have made poor decisions in life. Human beings are not things. A human being is an ongoing process that is constantly open to new possibilities in the future. Human being lives in the present moment at which future is decided. If they think otherwise, they are fooling themselves and being purposefully blind to their own nature. Two ways of finding bad faith are playing the role and treating someone as material things. Now, playing the role. A waiter wears a mask or persona of what he is not. He forgets that he is a real human being and being a waiter is his job. He changes his personality and starts playing the role of a waiter. Inauthentic human being forgets this creative choice and becomes prisoners of the image. Now, treating someone as a material thing, girl and boy in intellectual talk. One day, the boy holds a girl's hand. Girl has to decide. She doesn't take a decision but continues talking even as a sensation occurs in her body and mind. It is a kind of self deception, telling lie to oneself. Authentic existence is admitting the responsibility of what a man does or chooses. If a man realizes his freedom and responsibility, he is an authentic being. If a man tries to escape from responsibility, he is inauthentic and fallen being. Being in dash itself and being for dash itself. According to Sartre, there are two types of being for itself, that is porsui, and the in itself, being in itself, that is insoi. Being in itself is a mode of existence that simply is. It exists in a fully determinate and non relational way. It is concrete, lacks the ability to change, and is unaware of itself. The waiter thinks of himself as being a waiter, as in being in itself. Being for itself, that is porsui, is mode of existence of consciousness consisting in its own activity and purposive nature. Being for itself is conscious of its own consciousness but is also incomplete. For Sartre, this undefined, non determined nature is what defines man. Since for itself, like man, lacks a predetermined essence, it is forced to create itself from nothingness. From Sartre, for Sartre, nothingness is defining characteristic for itself. Now, being in itself and being for itself, differences. Being in itself is essence precedes existence. Being for itself is existence precedes essence. Being in itself is cannot make choices. Being for itself can always make choices. Being in itself has no responsibility. Being for itself has many responsibilities. Being in itself is non conscious. Being for itself is conscious. Being in itself, examples are trees, birds, etc. Being for itself is human being. Every being is being for itself who has self consciousness, which is changeable. Being for itself is without an essential nature. Hence, for any individual to claim that just the way I am would be a statement of self deception. Likewise, whenever people internalize the objectified identity granted to them by other people or by society, they are also guilty of self deception. Whenever people tell themselves that their nature or views are unchangeable or that their social position entirely determines their sense of self, they are deceiving themselves. Sartre believed that it is always possible to make something out of what one has been made into. The task of self actualization involves a complex process of recognizing the factual realities outside of one's self that are acting on the self, what Sartre calls faticity, and understanding exactly how those realities are working, as well as knowing fully that one possesses a consciousness independent of those factors. For Sartre, the only true authentic outlook recognizes one's true state as being possessed of self consciousness, whose future conscious state of being is always a matter of choice. That is, even though we are ultimately responsible for our own consciousness, consciousness of self is never quite identical to consciousness itself. Authentic life, therefore, is one where person accepts responsibility for their own actions and accepts the fact that they make choice. This is difficult paradox. That one is responsible for one's own consciousness, even though that consciousness is never quite graspable, since it is based on nothingness. This is crucial to his conception of human freedom and moral responsibility. Now, gaze of others. Sartre argues that we as human beings can become aware of ourselves only when we are confronted with the gaze of another. Not until we are aware of being watched do we become aware of our own presence. The gaze of other is objectifying in the sense that when one views another person building a house, he or she sees that person as simply a house builder. Sartre writes that we perceive ourselves being perceived and come to objectify ourselves in the same way we are being objectified. Thus, the gaze of other robs us of our inherent freedom and causes us to deprive ourselves of our existence as a being for itself and instead learn to falsely self identify as a being in itself. In turn, we may seek to regard others as deniable, definable, simple objects not possessed of individual consciousness. The notion of other plays a central role in Sartre's thinking and writing about large scale systems of social objectification, such as colonialism, racism, and sexism. Such systems enables the other to be falsely seen as an object, a definable being in itself, and not a free individual, a being for itself, possessed of his or her own indefinable conscious state of being. Sartre states that many relationships are created not by people's attraction to another person, but how that person makes them feel about themselves by how they look at them. This is a state of emotional alienation whereby a person avoids experiencing their subjectivity by identifying themselves with the gaze of other. In order to keep the person's own being, the person must not control the other, but must also control the freedom of the other as freedom. These relationships are a profound manifestation of bad faith as the for itself is replaced with the other's freedom. This system is often mistakenly called love, but is in fact nothing more than emotional alienation and a denial of freedom through conflict with other. Radically missing their own freedoms, the participants can experience masochistic and sadistic attitudes. They cannot escape because they believe themselves to be so enslaved to the look that experiencing their own subjectivity would be equally unbearable. Now, Martin Heidegger, the notion of being in the world is fundamental to Heidegger's existentialism. Since the time of Descartes, the individual is considered as a mere thinking subject, who is radically distinct from the world and therefore cognitively isolated from it. Heidegger, in his book Being and Time, tries to address this question of being. For him, the very being of individual involves engagement with the world, being in the world. The main problem of philosophy is nature of being. It is not the God, but something hidden in all beings. Of all beings, only man can raise the question and answer about the nature of being. Hence, man is the being in the world. Heidegger calls man as Dasein, or being there. Other things are determinate and have distinctive properties, but Dasein is the only being with a set of possibilities. Human existence is always a projection of oneself into future. Who he becomes is a matter of how he acts in various contexts. Being in the world is Heidegger's replacement for terms like subject, object, consciousness, etc. adopted by philosophers from Plato to Husserl. Traditional metaphysics tends to single out privileged entities like God, soul, etc., and resulting into forgetfulness of being. Now, awareness about mortality, our existence is essentially temporal. We have a past experienced in guilt and a fracture anticipated in dread. Time is not conceived as stretching towards unlimited, indefinite future. It stretches towards an indefinite future limited by death. Awareness of mortality is an essential part of Dasein. Individuals have awareness of mortality, leading self revising and self determining life. Their existence is more authentic. Inauthentic beings lead a life determined by social conventions and conformism. Those who believe in public time say that time is infinite. The felt time come to an end with death. Death is a necessary possibility. Temporality, time when associated with human consciousness, is known as temporality. Temporality is not just a succession of instants, but a unified past and future in the now through human intentions. Temporality is the constitutive structure of being in the world. It is not a property or characteristic of Dasein. Man is not in time in the same sense as things may be in a container. Without temporality, constitutive structure of Dasein is impossible. The relation between Dasein and time is neither eternal nor accidental. Man's existence is primarily moral and practical and not cognitive. We cannot talk of future without admitting time as inherent in Dasein. Possibility means possibility in future time. Primary mode of time is the felt or private time. Public time is derivative time rooted in private time. The division of time as past, present, and future in public sphere are arbitrary. All these are intimately connected by the free choice of man. Past is facticity. Unless one is aware of past, he cannot choose. Present choice of man makes future. That'll be all for the existentialism. We'll be starting Quinn and Stawson in the next video.